Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Audio Product Development Alliance. I'm Roger Shively from Shively Acoustics International, and this is the APDA, your gateway to audio product development. Today, we're going to have a round table discussion on the state of automotive audio, exploring the technologies and the disciplines that are transforming in the field that involves artificial intelligence, machine learning, the system architecture, DSP, sound tuning, active sound design, immersive playback, the evaluation methods that we use. Possibly we could even talk about that, and the future of sound in electric, autonomous, and connected vehicles. Online today from the APDA is Dave Lindberg from DB Enterprises and the THD podcast. Hey, Dave.
Hello, how's it going?
Yeah, good. It's good to see you again. And then also from Link Play is Steve Willenberg. Hey, Steve.
Roger, how you doing? I'm looking forward to the discussion today.
Yeah, I think so. And we'd also like to thank Joel Martins from Audio Express, our media partner, and Adam Levinson from Levinson Consulting. Um, we were gonna have this call this an APDA after dark, but I think that usually ends up with Dave Lindberg and I, listing the top 10 movies that we like, so which I don't think anybody is interested in. So, but we'll make it into a roundtable. And joining us in this roundtable is David Prince. He's a senior manager of audio hardware at Lucid Motors, and you'll take us inside a little bit about the where we are right now, but also some of the development that went on at Lucid for the Gravity audio system. And welcome, Dave. Good to see you.
Good morning. Thanks for having me. Great.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is going to be great. So, before we get too far along, just for those who don't know, the APDA, the Audio Product Development Alliance, is the only organization focused exclusively on audio product development education, providing current and relevant content that can be experienced in person, live online, like right now, or on demand later. Combined with valuable cross-industry knowledge sharing, the APDA serves as a networking hub for the audio industry, offering access to experts and colleagues for professional development. Essentially, the APDA is where we come to talk about how to build relationships and better audio products. We talk about, among other things besides automotive audio, design in general, measurement, simulations, supply chain, headphones, earphones, wireless technologies, and we even touch on industry standards here and there. So, and I'd also like to thank Spencer, who is producing us today on the live talk, and we're recording this as well. So if you can't watch all of it now, come back and check it out later. Check it out on the YouTube channel. Like it, share it, join us often, and request to join the APDA LinkedIn group as well. Let me bring up a little bit of a QR code that you can put together and see where we are. Let me share that for you. And there we go. So you can join us, become a member or a sponsor. We are a nonprofit and depend on our sponsors to help us keep going. And you can check out our webpage at theaudiodev.org or just become a member on the LinkedIn group. So please try to come over anytime you want and join us. That would be great. So next up, we'd like to probably jump in to see where we are right now in terms of what the automotive audio industry is looking like. So that's why we've come together to discuss it. We're in the middle of a unique time. I was just mentioning to Dave Prince before we started that Dave is involved with building a new car right now in this industry, and I equated it to like building the plane while it's flying, and in terms of the technology that we're dealing with, because there's a lot of impact here from streaming and voice artificial intelligence, and then there's the rideshare concepts that are out there, which I think also Lucid is involved in, or at least developing the autonomy as well. There's ownership models for cars as well, or just technology for that matter, and then the emerging applications of artificial intelligence and on the way that we think about sound. in and around vehicles and the use cases that come up. And we're in the middle of what is known of software-defined vehicles being developed. And I think that term is a broad one. I don't think there is one size that fits all for what could be called a software-defined vehicle, but it's a place where we're putting computers in cars and then defining, controlling that with stacks of software on top of that. And what does that imply, including the audio, which, as we know, and I think we can, maybe discuss how this is, the audio system in a car tends to get involved with every aspect of what's going on in the car. So whether it's alerts or music or just knowing what's going on in the environment or interacting with the car. So it has a lot to do with everything that goes on, which is kind of why it's a good topic for us at the APDA. It always has been. It also is a topic for the audio, the Audio Engineering Society, which, just to bring that up briefly and why we wanted to talk a little bit about automotive here in advance of what's coming up next month in Detroit. There will be an automotive audio conference specifically focusing on these topics and these things that are happening and changing in our world. And there's also been, clearly a lot of coverage in the news for automotive industry and more specifically the audio industry of all those topics that we just talked about. I know that our partners in Audio Express has dedicated over at least two issues on automotive audio and what that means. So I think it's really relevant, and it's also a topic that is fluid, I think. Maybe for those who aren't familiar with some of the things going on in automotive, maybe 3 years ago, there was going to be a clear vision for people to go towards electric vehicles as opposed to internal combustion engines. And, anybody can jump in and give me, context for that. But at that point, we looked like we were all going to be making electric vehicles in the future and have them ready starting now. Clearly, Lucid Motors started as an EV to begin with, but there were larger companies in the U.S. for sure, like Ford Motor Company or General Motors, that were going to go, full out towards the electric vehicles, and that changed quickly because it turned out that the price to make them and to sell them wasn't economic in the volume that they were talking about. And then the economy changed, and everyone hit the brakes, went left right away at 90 degrees, and said, "Okay, maybe we're not going to go all the way there." And so it seemed like we were moving around, and at the same time, software-defined vehicles were coming into discussion and then trying to be implemented early on. And some of those early implementations where it was a fully defined vehicle didn't work as well. It's complex to try to control everything through a network or a platform or a framework that is, purely trying to take care of everything between audio and safety and drive control. And so that was also something that seemed like it was a promising future that slowed down. And it felt like for a while, maybe we were chasing our tail and seeing if we could try to do something new. And I don't think that's the case any longer. You guys can maybe give me some insight on that as well. I think what we're following is a strong undercurrent that is going to eventually be there. Software-defined vehicles are here and if they're not here, they're coming. And then the managing of the hardware and the software that's involved with that, which Dave Prince probably knows very well, is important for audio and the other features in the car. And, in addition to that, that gives you opportunity to create, zones in a car as well, because you can control things intelligently. And I think maybe I can get someone's opinion on this. Is it a misstatement to say that the recent growth, I'm sorry, in artificial intelligence is, what's caused the increase of software-defined vehicles, or its increased value to a car? Or is it just that all the software apps that are out there? Maybe I'll start with Dave Prince. You maybe give us a perspective.
I think you gave a great intro. And where are we right now? We're in a classic adoption curve. You have a big spike
Yeah.
of interest and hype, and then you come down, and so we're sitting in that trough now, and now we're climbing our way out of it. We're in the EV winter, as one of our execs used to call it, and we're now, crawling out into the EV spring. We know it's coming. It's just like we'd like it to come a little bit faster. If you're in California, you're just like, there are EVs everywhere. Like you would at some point, the only thing you see on the road are EVs. So we're definitely there. It's just a matter of kind of, will it be 100%? No, there'll always be some ICEs, but this idea of the software-defined vehicle, I don't think it's necessarily, exclusively tied to AI. Things were already pretty well on a trajectory of this, but it's truly created one of the more exciting times in automotive development. You used to just everybody would put their own ECU together, and you'd kind of ship it, and then you'd forget about it. And what was done. And hardware was hardware, and then everything just kind of worked. And you had that vehicle as it was. Um, Now we have these supercomputers on wheels. And so we have these very complex central compute engines, if you will, that are then integrating everything and giving you a lot more capability. And so, as you said, audio is become way much more than just audio playback, and particularly much more interesting right now is on the pickup side and on the sensor side. And so you're seeing, not just playback, but there's a lot of mic pickup essentially, and just saying, okay, how am I going to interact with the people that are in the car that have a different functionality now? They might be the owner, they might be a leaser, they might be in an Uber taxi or something, a robo taxi. So they all have a different environment to interact with now. And so that sensing aspect of it has grown tremendously. And so it's become this thing that you engage with a lot more, rather than just drive and listen to a playback of the music that you popped into the player or something like that. Now it's become this interactive event, this thing, and even with the agentics that are now coming out, you'll have a lot more engagement. So it's really a fantastic time to be involved in automotive. Certainly the most interesting, in my 30 years plus of doing this. So it's a great time to be in the industry. When you release a vehicle, there's not this sense of, hey, you just sent it out the door. There's then now the sense of like, okay, what are we going to do next with that vehicle? And for hardware, it becomes very complex because you have to prepare for the future, which you have an inkling of where you think it's going to go, but you really don't know. And so you're trying to put the capability in there so that you can upgrade along the way. And so Lucid's been doing a lot of this. You get the vehicle out there, but then there are rollouts fairly frequently that add additional functionality or improve the performance in various ways. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's really a different game.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Go ahead, Steve.
and yeah, Dave, one of the things that you look at from a consumer products that is migrating obviously into automotive is that, you know, when you sell hardware, it just doesn't, it's just not sold and that's it. It kind of lives on, and through, these functions and, features that people are looking for in their products, that, like you say, that vehicle lives on. But what must be also pretty exciting is, the sensor technology that you mentioned. From an audio perspective, it just broadens the things that can be done within that environment. And that, to me, from looking at it from the audio perspective, opens up a lot of different domains and things that can be done within that ecosystem, if you will. So that's got to be, as a development engineer, pretty exciting for you and your team.
Yeah, and you're essentially, keeping up with the rest of the world too, because as everybody's getting a little bit more into AI and starting to work with their agents more, if the automotive end of it doesn't keep up, it's going to seem very archaic and ancient. So there's very much a pressure to keep developing in this area. So it's something that we can't ignore, and we can't just say, hey, I like it the way it used to be. Um, but but it's a fantastic time if you're engaged in this, and if you're involved in AI. If you look at where people are expanding in automotive, it's just like, hey, what can you do for us in the AI world?
Yeah, I think that's the comparison is the growth of AI and the growth of software-defined vehicles is, in parallel, maybe not driving one or the other, but that there is this moment now that is happening, and we're catching up with it as we go. And maybe I should give everyone a little bit of those who don't know David Prince, maybe a little background. His official bio was that he started as at 8 years old as a violin.
I was a world
And
famous violinist at Orchestra Hall in Chicago, and my one and only performance there, in 8 years old, playing a Suzuki concert. So that was my claim to fame. And most acousticians, most audio people are people who couldn't make it in the music business.
Music.
So that's
yeah, and well, from there you went on to great heights. You went into automotive audio. You were with Harman for a while, and also Premium Sound Solutions. So you have that background to begin with, but you got involved with a lot of those the audio, the user interfaces, and the artificial intelligence and machine learning in early days, and now you're trying to work and navigate that with Lucid. And before that, you were at Panduit. Yeah, so you've had a wide experience in the audio industry, which is good for automotive because, as you know, Steve was saying, anything that's in the consumer world is a feature that is wanted in a car. And now we're trying to make them into intelligent machines, I guess. And I think that's possible with all of the things you just mentioned. And with Dave Lindbergh, you're in Hong Kong, which means that you're dealing with a lot of the Chinese manufacturers and suppliers. But maybe and maybe you have a perspective on China in terms of automotive. But
Um, Actually, what I'd like to start is like, can we get an example, David Prince, of like something where the car was launched and then it was a feature that was added for like an audio system? Like, what would be an example of something like that maybe there's a base model and then people can add it, like, is it software as a service? Are these the kind of solutions that are upgradable, so to speak?
Mhm.
Yeah, there are different models that work with this. Harman has a few. Lucid certainly has been doing steady releases, either to add voice functionality, to improve voice and noise, to make basic improvements to the audio system performance, to add our Surreal Sound Pro. It's always evolving. So the basically all the spatial aspects that you've seen have been rolled out even after the car was launched. So a lot of the extra features that have been integrated into the playback system were prepared for with the hardware system, but then the enhancements and the further advancements as we've kind of developed the systems have been rolled out in subsequent updates. So it's a nice feature to have, and the noise cancellation stuff is really cool because it's just as you start improving on some of these, I can't share too much about it, but some of the models that we've developed for the voice isolation have just been phenomenal. And you get to the point where somebody's having a conversation going 80 miles an hour and the windows are down and things like that, and the person on the other end doesn't even know that they're in a car. It's really fantastic.
Is it done as a subscription service, or is it free upgrades, or a
Hey, I don't know.
combination?
That's I'm just involved in technology.
Okay, just hope
Yeah.
it, because I remember the BMW heated seat upgrade thing that a lot of the consumers really hated that business model. Like, you put the electronics in to
Oh.
heat my seat, and
All
then
right, so now you're seeing what happens if I don't move for 10 minutes in
Ah.
this room.
hopefully not a problem in a
our
car.
company is all about efficiency, okay? So if nobody's in the room, the lights are gonna turn off.
Okay. Well, keep
Anyway,
waving your hands.
yeah, so if you see me just gyrating around, that's why.
So go back to
related
you. Go ahead, David.
related
Yeah.
to China though, the product development cycles for automotive are moving at a different pace with the China EV market. And I'd be curious to see how that's like, okay, well, Lucid's a new company, so they probably have a different way to operate. But can you talk about the industry in America? Are GM and Ford, are they adjusting to this, or are they going to be left behind?
It's a big, kick in the pants and wake up call, right, to American automotive, that you just go over to China and you see what these vehicles are. We have a bunch here. And it's just the improvement and the advancement in quality is definitely something that I like, because it's pushing the rest of the industry to go further and advance further. Definitely cultural differences, right? So it's like you have a lot of Chinese features you wouldn't put into a US or a European market or something like that. But at the same time, there are a lot of technologies that are just like, wow, that works really well. And we need to up our game and keep improving. So it's their integration of all these systems is pretty phenomenal. So again, their voice systems integrated with the car are doing very well. So I'm impressed. It's
But competition always drives,
yeah,
both innovation and the ability to really, a long time ago when I was at General Motors, we had a huge facility where they brought in competitive vehicles. And, uh, even back then, they were stressing us to go and really go down, take a look at what these competitive vehicles, even, the exotic vehicles, the Ferraris, the Lamborghinis, just to see what they have. You're not going to put that on a GM vehicle, but, the intent was there that you needed to look at what competition was doing in order to, otherwise you're going to be left behind.
yeah.
And, I've got to believe that the US automakers, know that, and they're going to be driven by that. And I think it starts with, some of the companies like Lucid, who, are stepping out of the box, if you will, and taking a look at development from a different angle.
Yeah, I think that's the case for sure. I mean, one of the things I'd like to maybe ask a follow-up on that, what you were saying, Dave Prince. Since we have two Daves, I have to be careful who I call Dave. But so you mentioned there are features in China. And I think one of the things it's interesting because like after they came out of the pandemic, they started focusing really closely on the consumer, engagement or their involvement, focused on the end consumer, which meant that the experience that you probably are, one of the things you're talking about, which may not translate culturally, is well, you get into the car and it's immediately having a conversation with you about, about how your day was, and and you've got a companion that is engaged all the time, and it's also telling you how well the car is doing or if the battery needs to be changed or what have you. But that's a voice conversation, but perhaps it's that voice interaction that you thought was a great idea. Are there other ones that you think are really attractive that you can talk about that the European and North American consumer might be interested in
Are
because
there
they
other
may not be
features?
ready for a
Yes. Can I
car.
talk about them? No, not really.
Okay, but what
But
area where they be in? Where zone control, perhaps, like making the experience better for someone in
that's
different parts of the car,
right.
or
That's
what?
one of the logical areas is to have everybody have that voice interaction and have that capability. That's an obvious one that China has done pretty well in. Um, it's just really that the starting of that interaction. Like we're just not used to that. If you talk to some of my German colleagues at Harman or something like that, they're just like, no, you must have a knob that you can turn and it has to be this other thing. At some point we saw this explosion in China of everything was going through the screen and you had to get through a few menus to get there. Right now we're seeing a little bit of a backlash in the rest of the industry to say, yeah, the screens are okay, but can I have a knob just to turn the volume up and down and have some basic controls like I'm used to, and that I can just reach out and control without having to look at it. So I think there's kind of a balance and it'll settle out, but definitely the China industry just like, hey, let's get more features, as many things as we can in there. But as far as I think the voice interaction will probably be very similar level of saying, hey, each person in the vehicle can have a voice interaction, and the car knows where that person is. So those are kind of the basics. But there are a lot of other things that are areas for development.
Yeah, and I think I saw in some of the features adoption. I mean, active noise control was quickly adapted and used in China, and these other digital applications basically was a wake up call, like you said, to Detroit and to Europe. And they've, Europe was a little quicker to adapt, and now, yeah, in America, North America, they are, catching up. But they've also, run into the fact that it's, for a smaller company, say Lucid's size, I consider it small compared to what GM might be, or Ford, or the thing that is Stellantis. They have these scale issues that they have to try to, create. How do you put all this into a car and still make money on it? What Lucid, the history of Lucid, maybe you can help. I mean, they were probably one of the first ones ever to put Dolby Atmos into a car. So they adapted that quickly. But the background from Lucid, I think the foundation of it started with some ex-Tesla folks, right? And they said, let's go make batteries. And then they said, let's go make a car. And they were pretty open to the mindset that probably came in from that experience at Tesla, where it's going to be a lot of in-house work, but we're also going to put in new features. And that was probably very compatible with what was going on in China, as the quick, they were going fast and we were just trying to catch up. But I think maybe you can give us some insight on how, from the beginning, the way that Lucid's been developing a car, the audio from the beginning. It's just maybe focus on audio, but how have you seen the experience?
So I've only been here for a little over a year, so it's
okay. Yeah.
I have limited perspective, but it's an interesting test case, and I think you could, if you were a student of this, you could write a paper on the development and things like that, because like a lot of cars, you're companies that are startups. Basically, you're starting out with a technology, and probably audio is not one of those core technologies, right? It was
Correct. Yeah.
side performance. How can we get the maximum efficiency out of this thing? So you have an audio group that comes in, and they design the system, and then somebody's just like, okay, the audio's done. And audio team can go away now that the system's designed, or I can outsource it. There was another stage of outsourcing. So, but what quickly became apparent is that you really need to, when you're dealing with this level of car integration, you need to bring in a full team and have your audio team embedded in the company and integral to the company, because there are day-to-day decisions that affect the audio system that a lot of people aren't aware of. And so that's been a kind of a key thing that's been built up over the last couple of years. And Ryan Mihalich came in, and he basically built this team, from a couple people up to almost 20. And we have a huge talent pool of many different aspects. We have one guy here, Noel. He's a two-time Grammy winner. So he comes from the music production space. We've got a neuroscience guy. We've got AI people. We've got mechanical engineers. We've got a whole bunch of different folks, acoustic people, obviously. So there are a whole bunch of different aspects that come into it. But the key thing to understand is that it's day-to-day decisions that are being made all the time that will affect what happens to the audio performance and to the voice integration and all these things. And so to try and only design it outside becomes very problematic these days. You used to be able to do that. It's just like, okay, I'm just going to go source my speakers from these folks. I'm going to source my head unit from these folks. But you can certainly use an OE, a tier one supplier these days, but you better have a good talent team on board. And so I think Lucid, learned that lesson, and it's been part of the success that we've had, particularly when Gravity came out. You saw the effect of that team coming to fruition and coming of age that got Gravity to the performance level that it is. So it was really having enough talent in-house being able to affect the change that's required and being able to keep an eye on all the parts that affect the audio system very closely. Are we perfect? No, we still have ways to go. We're still developing and things like that. But it's certainly come a long way, and it's probably certainly the way of the future, that you need to have a decent amount of talent in-house as the OE, as
Well,
the brand to develop these systems further.
and when we talk about that type of internalization, we call that sort of vertically integrating. Um, how much of that is, I mean, how much, what's your relationship with, it's all in-house invention in terms of algorithms, applications, system integration? How is do you work with outside um, application suppliers or hardware? I mean, clearly hardware is not going to be something you make, I'm guessing. Likewise, speakers. So you're dealing with some hard things, but the software itself, is that something you are all developing internally then?
Uh, the majority of the design is now internal. Um,
Okay.
so yeah, transducer. I mean, we're doing some cool stuff with, as you said, we're designing the car as it's driving to a certain degree. But it's a lot of this design is really coming from the internal team, including transducer teams. Obviously, we're working with manufacturers that we know and trust,
Okay. Yeah.
to do the assembly and things like that. So the typical suppliers, we use DSP platforms that our other folks are using, that are the platform, but we are developing our secret sauce, if you will, is really what differentiates Lucid. And so our algorithms, our upmix, and things like that are pretty essential to how we get the performance that we get.
Yeah, and that's
Okay.
got to be pretty exciting when you have that cross-functional type of a team. Because when you think about it, audio systems, there's some foundational things that you need. I mean, you need transducers, and then you build up from there. But with all the tools that are available, and then having some of those cross-functional teams, like somebody that is out of the music industry, if you will, or some non-traditional audio development perspective, I think that really adds another dimension to the system in general. That would give it a heads up or a leg up on competition, if you will. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, what's really cool is we're all in the same room. So
Mhm.
we are in the same lab. Well, all the cars are there, all the desks are there. It's just, you're not necessarily working with everybody side by side, but you are
Mhm.
all the conversations that are going on. So even though I'm running the hardware group, I'm fully aware of everything that's going on in the software group. I know of all the issues that are going on, and so it's always a really lively conversation. We're
Mhm.
just always ears open. If we hear a problem that we know something about or have an insight on, we'll chime in. So it's super exciting. We it's like a little bit of a brag, but we think we have one of the top audio teams in the world here.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Um, how common do you think this is right
Oh, it's
now?
not. Yeah, I don't think it's that common. I think
Okay.
you know,
Because it sounds
folks across
there,
the bay might think, that yeah, they've got a pretty decent deal.
yeah, but or maybe there are those in larger companies thinking this is how we have to do it, and how can we figure out a way to do it without, losing, what the control that they want, perhaps. I don't know, but it seems like this is a good model if you've got the good team. I think the team is the most, the elements of the team are probably the most important part of the model itself. Picking the right people with the right imagination and the right skill set to figure it out and solve it, and then allowing them to do it without, saying, no, I wanted three wheels instead of four, something silly. Uh, so, um, and you work with vendors. That means you're working with, but I guess that's the question I was going to ask is if you develop something, then do you outsource it after you've developed it and proved it, or do you just say, okay, give us this black box that we want? Is that how you do it?
No, it's all integrated without getting into too much detail. So
Okay.
we're doing some interesting stuff. It
Okay. So you're currently working on what is called the mid-size.
we don't do
coming
our
out.
own silicon. Okay, so we use
Okay, okay. So
we
you
do
draw
our,
the line at silicon then. Okay. My perspective, because I worked at Harman too for quite a long, back in the early 80s, and at that time Harman was extremely vertically integrated. And Harman though was just a tier one. It wasn't the car maker. But we made everything in house with the exception of magnets. We didn't make the magnets, but we did everything else. And eventually we had to, realize that that wasn't sustainable in a competitive way, but we could invent things ourselves, and that was good. And then we would have someone make those things for us. And it sounds like that's sort of the approach that you've taken here, is that we're going to be inventive and we're going to make our own, but we're going to have somebody else give us the platform to put it on.
yeah. I mean, for so long, right? The way the world we grew up in was all the inventive stuff happened at the tier one level, right? We would
Correct.
come up with
Yeah.
these creative ideas, and then we present them to an OE and say, "Hey, how do you like this? Can we
Yeah.
put this in your vehicle?" And the OE would just say, "Oh yeah, let's bring that in," or not, or no. And then the
Yeah.
OE relied on that tier one. So this is a change of model where we're doing the inventing in-house here because it's so integrated into the rest of the vehicle, and then working with our outside partners to get it built. But most of the design is coming out of here.
Quick.
Yeah, I would think
Go
that
ahead.
the tools that you have available in that kind of a model, Dave, is pretty exciting because, when you do have software residing next to hardware in the same room, I go back to the products that we produce and manufacture, and it's a key element because there is so much that can be done to assist the limitations of the hardware via software. Because the memory has gotten cheaper and cheaper, and there's things that you can do that really help that ecosystem, if you will, become what you want it to become. And again, that's from a development perspective, a very powerful thing.
Yeah, and companies like this, I mean, each discipline has a lot of passion, right? So everybody is fighting for their own thing.
Hmm.
If you're not present fighting for your thing, you're going to get somebody else is going to come into your territory. So, automotive audio, you're always in a compromise situation just to begin with, right?
Right.
You're sitting off axis, everybody's off axis, and you're sitting in this noisy place, and you've got all these boundaries around it. It's just a
Yeah.
mess. But so that part hasn't changed, but everything else about it has, and so that's what makes it kind of exciting.
Hmm.
I have a couple more questions, but I don't, Dave Lindbergh, do you have a follow-up you wanted on any of your comments on the Chinese connection, or I think the thing that the updates over the air that was something that has been happening all the time, and so it's basically an upgrade that you're doing, but it's software that's being updated, not hardware, clearly. And so that in itself means that this couldn't have happened that long ago. A lot like the development process. If we were still putting in, um, smart junction boxes or ECUs that were controlling the technology, could this type of development exist then, or is it because we have the ability to have software and artificial intelligence eventually drive this? Is that how what's enabled a team like this to work, or could this team have always existed if it was the right mindset? Uh, Like the tools question that Steve brought up is like, you didn't have the tools once upon a time. Had different tools. We had different boxes, and we had wires going to all of them. And now presumably we're doing it over a network. But you think it could have been developed the same way in a team effort, team approach, or that was for Dave Prince. Sorry, that question. But I did ask Dave Lindbergh.
Yeah.
But
No, I mean, it's one goes with the other. And I think that there have been some talented teams in the past that have worked closely with the OE. So some of the tier ones have had a better relationship with the OE to get these types of things integrated. But the physics is the same. So you still have to start with really solid transducers, right? Once you get into the amplifier, then you can start getting a little bit more creative. But you're like right now, our amplifiers, are getting, some people are putting more smarts into the amplifier. Other people are keeping all the smarts in the central compute. So that's kind of a dichotomy. I'm kind of a hybrid approach, and this is just me personally, not necessarily Lucid, is that you have edge compute, but then you
Yeah.
have edge on the edge. So there are even certain things that are fundamental, that have extreme low latency requirements, that need to be even more restricted. And the car has a pretty good idea of this because we have all these safety systems. We have all these time critical things that need to happen. And so sometimes it's better if those are on the edge of the edge. But as we see more of the compute come out to the edge, just as the vehicle, as the first edge, I think that's where all the flexibility is going to be and the power is going to be as far as the future upgrade. So yeah, you couldn't have done this a while back, but
Well,
the solid physics was always there, and you always
well,
still need a good location for the speakers, right? I mean, we still have to fight for that and all those core
well,
lessons.
and I have a couple of questions because edge on an edge. What? What? What is that? A hat on a hat? What is that? What? Explain what edge on the edge is.
Well, I mean, you have real-time operating systems, and then you have these other media systems that are
Thank you.
in the
Okay.
vehicle. Okay, so those true real-time things that you want sub-millisecond latency on, and things like that.
Mhm.
Those things need to be pretty close to wherever that signal's coming from. Once you get beyond that, then you can start going to your central compute, and you still want real time there, but you're fighting with other things. But inevitably, somebody's going to be developing something for Android, which is not real time, and your signal's coming from there. So that thing you just try and stay away from, and keep all your control off the non-real time systems. So there are different levels to it of where you need your processing to be.
Okay, so edge versus system on a chip, SoC. The latency on is a big driver for edge location, right? Because it's right there. You don't have to go out and come back again or check the time. So that's what you're talking about. So you're centrally is the I don't know, concept or whatever the philosophy for what you're doing is central computing. You have a central compute for the entire car, and then everybody else is working on their own problem at the time, like audio, and then they talk
There
back
are
and
different
forth.
levels to it depending on the vehicle that you're in.
Okay, all right.
So Air had one thing, Gravity has another, midsize will have another. The Cosmos.
They're evolved. Yeah. So the Air was the first one, which sort of got everybody's attention. Then Gravity is just launched, which is getting great reviews on audio. So I think that's the team that we're talking about here that Ryan put together made Gravity what it became, more than likely. And now we got the midsize, which one of them you called Cosmos. Cosmo?
Cosmos.
Cosmos. And then there's the other one. There's a sport utility, which is I think being called Earth. Is that right?
Earth, yes.
Okay,
Cosmos, Earth.
Gotta love the
So,
names.
so anybody who's interested in this stuff, there's a great YouTube video that Corey put out a few months ago in March, I think, something like that, that kind of gives you an overview of the vehicles that are coming there. So anybody watching that, I would encourage them to look that up because that'll have better information than I could give.
Okay, so if you just search Lucid midsize on YouTube, you can find
Right.
it.
Yeah.
Okay. But the basic idea is that you're using a central compute, and then is it A2B, I'm assuming that you're using, or is it some other networking that you're involved with? And I'm guessing you're going to the newer version of A2B, which is version 2. Is that also, or can you not say that?
These are, yeah,
Okay. All right.
questions. You could probably get banned.
Okay. All right. So basically, we're talking about supercomputers on a car on wheels, and how do you deal with different ways of approaching software? I mean, audio is it's not, maybe a lot of people are doing packets, and maybe you can explain what that means. But audio is not a packet-friendly environment. So how do you deal with some of those struggles that you deal with even today, right now? Or is that something else you have to defer to.
I can't really go much further on this.
Okay, all right.
We deal with the signal after that, after those issues are resolved.
Okay.
No, they're not insignificant, and I actually draw on my Panduit experience more than automotive. Yeah, just packet-based networks and things like that. We just had huge hopes for some of these, 5G different types of implementations and things like that. We're supposed to take care of a lot of these problems with you being able to define your own network and doing circuit to circuit more than packet. But it was, it's yeah, all that stuff's a big headache, but it's
Well,
not
this it's a relevant headache because
yeah,
if
yeah,
you're talking about a software-defined vehicle, this is the problem, right? You have to control a lot of different ways of sharing information and reproducing, quality out of that,
right,
and then also make sure you don't crash um, at the same time because you're driving you're driving the computer around, and if there's a lot of problems that you have to anticipate that a bug can cause a real crash instead of a
yep,
computer crash.
right.
So, um, and so your manufacturing is probably pretty broad. It's in terms of the components that you're buying them not just from the US, but from Asia and where whoever's giving you the best quality and price. Is that basically what you know of in terms of hardware, software? I mean, well, hardware being loudspeakers also.
Yeah, it's sourcing is always a challenge, right? It's as the industry shifts, I mean, we're living it right now. We have uh, basically the industry is shifting from what it these cost-effective memory modules to now all this AI stuff. And so all these fabs have been shut down and kind of moving to a different platform. So DDR4 to DDR5. And all of a sudden you're just like, wait a minute, no, audio still wants DDR4. Like, so we're a lot of times we're fighting these industry trends overall because audio has different requirements than what AI does. And so, we have to be cognizant of all those things and keep moving with it. Um, but it's always a challenge, and you're kind of working with the latest, whether it's an SoC or whether DSP or wherever you're doing your compute. You always have to be aware of where the market is and where things are going. But it's once we get into our realm of the audio system, we have a signal, we're bringing it in, and we're processing it. A lot of times, yes, you have so many issues upstream of that with T-Mobile or Verizon or whoever it is, and things like that. And that's really where there are frequently more problems than our systems, just because we can control everything. But it's just like, yeah,
Right.
every step of that path has its own issues, and you try and keep your stuff in your path and deal with it as best you can.
Well, we had those issues clearly in automotive early when we had digital radio and, it was never as good as it should have been or just broadcast radio. So your source was your biggest problem, not somewhat, and you had to figure out how to control it and make it still sound good. So it sounds like is the ability to do that. Are we keeping pace with the problem solving or are we just making it harder when we add in software defined vehicles, or is that just the way, that's the world we live in right now, so we have to deal with it. It's no longer necessarily a digital radio stream, but it is a wireless stream, and that's a problem on top of
And
it,
you'd
right?
love everybody to say, hey, we'll all standardize on CarPlay or we'll all standardize on something else. But right now, the world's not doing that. So yeah, we're dealing with it.
Okay. And
Is it-
the other thing about this you mentioned early was sensors. We have more sensors. I mean, I don't know how many sensors are in the Lucid Air, but or the Gravity, but is it just compounding with what you're making now?
Yes, it's well, and this goes more onto the robotaxi stuff. And
Yeah.
it's when you start to think about driverless vehicles and how does that vehicle interact with the outside environment if there's no driver? And all, topics like that are very interesting today. So you have our Uber partnership, and so you have to, so that's out there with our Gravity. You'll see in that YouTube video I referred to, there's eventually going to, right now we have a concept of what this lunar project is. But all these things, wherever you're going, you're looking at this autonomous relationship. And so once you get there, then the whole environment changes and how you need to interact with emergency services or the outside world, and how you provide also alerts and things like that to vehicles that are coming from different directions. Um, I kind of like it. I'm just like, boy, this makes it a wide open playing field. Like all of a sudden, you don't have a driver that needs to see the road. So all of a sudden the car design changes. You say, well, all of a sudden, hey, I could put some large studio monitors instead of the windshield. I could put like a nice pro sound system up there. I could do something crazy. Obviously, that won't happen, but it's a new template to draw on once you look at this autonomous vehicle.
David, did you have a question on
Yeah,
sensors?
no, it's like it just seems like the roles are going to become blended across, like, if you look at the security of the car, whether it's like a driver facial ID on who's driving the car, or outside of the car, microphones and cameras for threat detection for people, like perhaps approaching the vehicle, or when you're away from the vehicle as well, like the Tesla stuff where they were catching the people who were keying the cars.
Yeah.
With the camera and stuff, but doing that on the edge is one thing as well, so you can turn down your main CPU. But I can just imagine, like, and then adding driverless, also using microphones for maintenance, wear detection and stuff like that. You get like the team and the audio team, it becomes quite the pot that you're mixing in there. It sounds challenging just to manage all these different requirements.
Yeah, that's the message, is that it's so integrated now, and it's so, like, to just think of audio, when you say you're an automotive audio engineer, it's a whole big bang. It's just a huge pot now to play in. Lots of stuff going into it. So that's why I say it's truly an exciting time to be in automotive audio. It's very cool that way.
And then, how do you decide? You mentioned knobs versus voice. I mean, how does that process work itself even? I mean, how do you decide this is that something from experience, or just you get the feedback and you say this needs to be a tactile type of a thing, or is that sort of on a case by case basis where
Yeah, it's a lot of it goes into, where's your brand sit, and how are you developing that brand? So, there's a certain trim level that might have one interaction level versus another, or if you're Harman, there might be, JBL versus the Bang& Olufsen versus whatever system, and each of those would have a different level of UI UX. I think
And I would think that you do a lot of focus groups as well, where you go out and I mean, that's what we used to do was, go out and do these focus groups and just get consumers, you vet the consumers to make sure that, you're hitting the right demographic, but go out and do the advanced testing. And, because at the end of the day, it's all about the customer experience.
Right.
And, no matter what kind of product it is, if the consumer feels value is tied into that product, they're going to have a very high, view of that product. If the customer experience is a challenge, they're not going to pull their money out of their wallet into the future on that, on a next generation product. So that's the key component.
How do you get the voice of the customer, Dave? Is that something that you guys get clearly on or are you using your own vision to say this is probably a better decision? I mean, how do you make those choices?
Yeah, that's not in my group. So
Okay, but someone gives you some feedback and says, "Yeah, that's not
no,
working."
we have a really great user group,
Oh, okay. All right, good. Okay.
And our guys, there are probably, I don't know, a lot of our audio team stays on those user groups just to get all this feedback about what was working, what wasn't.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, actually,
That's
yeah.
the voice of the customer
I'd
right
say
there.
it's out of my hands. It's on the desk next to me, right? It's
Okay, good.
somebody very close.
That's fine, and you get to hear it. Voice. So you mentioned that you've got some really good voice algorithms. I mean, that's I think the biggest problem hands-free has is that you may be able to hear the caller, but they can't hear you in the mess of what's inside the car. So you've I don't know if it's in the Gravity or in the Lucid, but it sounds like you're coming up with better ways to hear the talker in a car. Is that what I'm hearing from you that
Yeah,
you've
and I
come
don't
up?
even know, so I go with the demos that I hear our guys come
Uh-huh.
up with. So
Right.
how much of this has actually hit the street, I'm not sure. If you haven't had it yet, there's probably an update out there that's improving on these things. And a lot of times you don't even, that there's an update that rolls out, and then all of a sudden you're just like, hey,
Okay.
that's cool.
And those updates are, say I had a Lucid Air and I can get an update on something that you're developing right now for a midsize. Is that something that is conceivable, or
Oh no,
is
they're
there?
vehicle specific, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
There are a lot of cross development stuff that will probably go different places,
Okay.
but obviously, but
And how are you're rolling these out over the air? Is that right?
right.
And so
I,
you've got if whatever your wireless connection. So what kind of wireless connection do I need for my Lucid motor vehicle? My phone? Or does the car have its own?
I'm sure the car has its own Wi-Fi and
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. All right. But then there's different levels. So maybe all the features that you have or want depends on your connectivity and or what you added. There's like we talked about subscriptions. I think that's part of it too, which isn't your business, but it's people are paying for subscriptions, and those are applications that you're offering in the cars. And so it's really depending on how much of a Wi-Fi or a wireless connection package you have already in the car. So
I don't know. Whenever I'm driving out my test vehicles or something like that, so it's like there's an update available. Do you want to update? And then you just hit go and it does it.
okay, all right, okay, but I don't know. You may not know this answer though. Where Lucid Motors is sold, is it sold globally or is it mostly in the U.S.?
I don't know all the figures. I would say, yeah, mostly U.S. obviously.
Yeah,
But I mean, there's Europe, there's
yeah.
Europe,
Because I know that some of the problems that some of the manufacturers were having is that okay, I can do that here, but when I get to Africa, I have a different server or a different problem with how I get an update. So over the air, it becomes complicated. Or even in different parts of Europe, you may have a different scheme on what you have to do to get something over the air. So that becomes complex. But I think in the US, we're sort of, it's an easier way to do it, but globally it becomes an issue. But these are things that tend to work their way out in over time. So um, okay, so right now you have the two. Yeah, is there two vehicles coming up or three vehicles? There's a utility, sports utility, and then the
Yeah. So if you look at Corey's podcast, I think you'll see
okay,
YouTube
all right,
video. I think you'll see the Cosmos and Earth there with in the details probably aren't even shared there.
okay.
The and then the lunar concept, but the lunar concept is a sketch, right? It's just it's this idea of where we're going.
Oh, I knew we were going to the moon. I knew it. That's okay.
Exactly.
I'm glad to hear
Hey, if
that.
you went
So
to the cosmos, you got to go to the moon too. So
that's right. Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much. I mean, the other things, you mentioned robo-taxis so that, things can break quickly when you get no driver. And so all those security issues are clearly a problem. And software bugs are security issues, right? So that's I guess that's an evolving uh, project in terms of robo-taxis for you
yeah,
guys.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's definitely a new twist on things. Yeah, a lot of learning experience and new things to think about when you look at this driverless vehicle.
And you're doing that in partnership with Uber, is that correct?
Right. Yeah.
All
So
right.
it's a three-way partnership: Uber, Nuro, and Lucid.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. All right. Appreciate it.
So
This
those
was great. This
Exciting.
was great. Yeah. thanks a lot for your time, Dave. And we'll have to get you back again when things are out in the world and you can tell us how you did it. So,
Even then, I'm probably not going to tell you. But
yeah, no.
all the good
Well,
stuff, I'm not going to tell you.
okay, so the best way to do that is to
You
go
got to buy a
find
car.
Dave. Yeah, go buy a car or go where we're going, which is this is the APDA's got an event coming up, and I mentioned earlier, which is because the Audio Engineering Society is putting on this automotive audio conference in Detroit at the end of July, and the APDA will be there. And if Dave is there, you can twist his arm and buy him a beer and see what happens.
I'm trying to be there. My travel schedule doesn't look so friendly, but we'll see what I can.
Okay, and just as a reminder for those who haven't seen it yet, let me see if I can find the screen to share, and I think that's it. Yeah, so just the topic of the conference is automotive audio in the AI era, which we were kind of touching on. So it happens at the end of July. So we've got 35 days left before that starts. So come in and see it. The schedule's, pretty vast. It talks about a lot of the things that we were just talking about. So, and it goes for 3 days. So come join us and dive in on each day. And for those who might be interested, here's our keynotes. We have from Abbey Rhodes, Merrick Stiles, and Sean Olive coming, as well as Sok Choi. So please come and join us. And while we're talking about joining, let's make sure you get a chance to join us at the APDA if you get a chance. But if you do see us in Detroit, if you're coming and you're interested in automotive audio, come take a peek at what we're doing there, and we'll be able to get you signed up to be a member. So or check us out online. So once again, thanks. Keep an eye on our webpage and our channel to see what's coming up next. But the next time you'll probably see us is in person in Detroit. But maybe before that, we'll do another little preview in the coming month. So once again, thanks Dave and Steve. I appreciate your time, and we'll let you go. And thank you for everything. And take care. And I'll say goodbye. Bye now.
Thank you all.
Thank you.